Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel where we mainly discuss thrillers on Thursdays. And today I'm wearing my Halloween costume because number one, I'm filming this on Halloween, and number two, I'm filming the final video in my Halloween series. And this one, I have to admit, is the one I'm most excited about because I love horror novels, but I also really love horror TV shows. And I don't know about you guys, but it feels like there's always a good horror TV show out. But I don't know if there's been this many good ones and this many brand new ones out at once. So I'm going to be talking about all the ones that are down listed in the description box in case you're curious which ones I'm going to cover in this video, and I'll have them listed in the order that I'm going to talk about them, although it's not in any order in terms of which ones I liked and didn't like. Because I'll say up front, some of these are great and some are trash. Now obviously I haven't seen every single episode of all these shows since some are, or actually most I think are still premiering right now and not all the episodes are out. And also because the ones that were terrible, I just gave probably 3 episodes. I don't have that many extra hours to devote to bad TV. So again, I'm not gonna say any spoilers, and if you do put any spoilers down in the comment section, because I do want to hear your guys' thoughts, make sure to put spoilers in giant caps. So the first show we're going to talk about is Light as a Feather, and this is a new series about a group of girls in high school who invite one of the new girls to come out for their yearly tradition to just hang out in a cemetery on Halloween. And the new girl has the idea to play light as a feather, but with a twist, where before you lift the person up, you say how they're going to die, and then, as you would guess, the girls start to die off in the way that this new girl said that they would die when they played Light as a Feather. I kept hearing people say in reviews that this was kind of like Pretty Little Liars combined with Scream with like a dark twist, and I have to say this is unfortunately one of the ones where I gave it 3 episodes and I just gave up. I don't think this is the worst show in the world, but the writing I just think is pretty bad. I thought all the characters were pretty bland, and what it was really missing was just that kind of snarky edge. It wasn't that I wanted it to be full-on Scream Queens, even though I do love Scream Queens, but it was even just missing that like Pretty Little Liars spunk. It just felt like the show was taking itself way too seriously, and they never gave us reasons to really care about these characters. One of the main characters' sister died in the past, and it felt like that just because her sister died, we were supposed to care about her. I will say I thought the gore in this show was surprisingly good. They didn't hold back, but overall, even if you're a horror fan, even if you're a teen show fan, I don't think Light as a Feather is very good. And next up, we're going to talk about American Horror Story Season 8 Apocalypse. Now, before I talk about Apocalypse, I'll say my opinion on American Horror Story in general, and I'll say I don't think that this is a very unique or special opinion. I think a lot of people kind of feel this way. I feel like they're the die-hard American Horror Story fans who have consistently loved it and just love everything Ryan Murphy does. And then there are people kind of like me who really loved season 1 and kind of loved seasons 2 and 3 and then thought the rest was kind of awful. I'll admit the past 2 seasons of American Horror Story I've tried to get into and I just can't. It's gotten to the point where I'm all for crazy weird, I'm all for gory, but when there are so many characters and when it's so crazy and out there, it starts to stop being shocking, and it felt like things were written just to be shocking and not for the sake of the writings. So now that you have that in mind, going into this season of American Horror Story Apocalypse, I didn't even know if I was gonna watch it because I hadn't liked the past seasons. I'd kind of given up, but I'm so glad I did because it's amazing. So giving a summary of this is gonna be really difficult to do without spoilers, but I'm gonna try. So it's about a world where the apocalypse has happened, and some people are in this safe house underground, and all I'll say is, not surprisingly, there's something evil there with them as some horrible things start happening, and there's a lot of callbacks to previous seasons. Now I'll say I didn't love the first couple episodes with the current cast that you meet in episode 1, but then by the time we got into, I think it's episode 3 or 4, I was all in. And I will say I'm not enjoying it as much as season 1. I don't think the writing has been as good since then, but I think if you loved the first few seasons of American Horror Story, I do think you're gonna love Apocalypse, and I do think it's worth a chance. Even if it's just to stare at this guy because he is beautiful. The next show I wanted to talk about is The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell, and this is a pretty unique one. Christine McConnell is a baker. From what I've gathered, she got incredibly popular when she had this picture, I think it was her parents' house, and she made it look terrifying for Halloween. So she's a baker known for making kind of these creepy treats. So this is a cooking show on Netflix. I've seen this get, unfortunately, very, very mixed reviews, and I can kind of understand why. One complaint I don't think is very valid. Some people think her cooking is just so difficult, which is true because who's ever gonna actually make this? But some of the stuff is more simple and doable, and it's also different than most cooking shows in that there's a common theme and plot throughout it about her interacting with her neighbors, the guy she's starting to see, the animatronic monsters that she lives with. Sometimes the show can be a bit cringy, and I'm not holding this against her because she's not an actress, she's a baker, but sometimes her acting is a little bit stilted, but overall the show is unique and just so fun. So for me, this is the type of show that I would have, say, on the background while I'm drawing or doing a puzzle or something like that. The next show I want to talk about is Castle Rock, and it combines all of Stephen King's stories that take place in Castle Rock. And I'll admit, I've read a fair amount of Stephen King, but I'm not familiar with the books that this series is based on. I was really looking forward to this one. I watched the first 6 or so episodes with my boyfriend. He doesn't like scary stuff or horror, so it's nice that he watches along with me. He's also watching Haunting of Hill House, which I'll get to later in the video. But this is a weird one to talk about because objectively, I do think this is a good show. The acting is great, the cinematography is great, I think the writing's very good. But for some reason, it didn't really hold my interest and it didn't really hold his, and it's a good show, but for some reason it's just, for me, and it seems like others, a little bit difficult to connect with. So please let me know what you guys think. Again, it's a good show, I would recommend it, but for whatever reason, there are just other TV shows that are grabbing my attention a little bit more. Next, we're gonna talk about A Discovery of Witches. And before I get into saying what this is about and my thoughts on it, I will say that my friend Sarah Jane, I met her at BookNet Fest. She is so nice, so lovely, and she is doing a recap of every single episode, and I'll have her episode 1 linked down below in case you're interested. But I highly recommend checking out her recaps and subscribing to her channel because she's actually read A Discovery of Witches. I believe it's a trilogy and I have not, so you might want to check out her. So as I said, A Discovery of Witches is based off of a series that I have not had a chance to read yet. I've actually heard kind of mixed things about the book, but anyway, this is a new series that's available on Sky One, I believe it is, in the UK. It's not available in the States yet, which is one reason that although I like this show, I've only seen a few episodes because I think I want to wait until it's on Netflix so I can actually watch it on my TV. But for a brief summary, Diana is about to become a professor at Oxford. She has her PhD, and one day she's studying in the library and she requests a book, and it turns out that this is a very ancient book that witches and vampires have been after. I think I forgot to say Diana's a witch. She's very much aware of it, but she's not really interested in practicing her powers. And so she gets this book that people have been searching for hundreds of years, and it's about I believe at this point, I've only seen a couple episodes, the history of witches and vampires. So vampires and witches all are kind of going after her, trying to get this book. And naturally, this very attractive vampire guy who's also very interested in the book, and I will have to say Matthew Goode is one of the best aspects of this show. And there are a lot of things that I love about it. This is the type of show it would be really difficult for me not to like. Like 16, 17-year-old Katie, this is just her bread and butter, what she would love. So there's something very nostalgic about watching it, even though this isn't a series I've heard of before. So as I said, I did like it a lot. It's difficult to find to watch if you live in the US, so I've seen the first few episodes, but I'm gonna wait, as I said, until I can watch it on the TV. The one negative I would have to say about this show is the writing. Sometimes, and I've seen Sarah Jane agree with this as well, I just watched her episode 1 recap, but some of the dialogue in particular is pretty cringy and awkward, and I don't think it's the actors' fault. Matthew Goode and Teresa Palmer, I've seen them in other movies and TV shows, and they are both wonderful actors, but I think the writing just maybe isn't the strongest, especially when it comes to the dialogue. So I wouldn't say that this is the most well-written show, but I still would recommend it if, based off the summary, it sounds like something you might like. It's just a fun fantasy horror romance, and I personally really like it. Now we're going to talk about a very exciting one, and that is The Chilling Adventures, or is it Curious Adventures? Either way, The Adventures of Sabrina. Now I'll admit, at first I wasn't very excited about this one, and maybe some of you guys were also stupid and felt the same way, because I thought this was just a remake of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the TV show, when I was like, of course the people who did Riverdale are taking over, they're just gonna try and make this series dark as well. But then I actually took 2 seconds to research it, and I realized that this is based off of a very, very dark graphic novel. So this isn't a remake, this is bringing the graphic novel to life, which I also have been reading. So for a brief summary, Sabrina is, when it starts off, she's very much aware that she's a witch, and she's having to choose. She's living with her aunts, and she's trying to decide, does she want to fully sign the Book of the Dead, I think it's called, and really engross herself in the witch world and go to school with them, give up her human life, or does she want to give that aspect up and stay with her human friends and Harvey and all of them? My favorite aspect about the show, and this might sound a little bad, but I do think it's very important in a show like this, is just the cinematography and the way it looks. It is stunning. I also think, I'm blanking on the main actress's name, I know she was in Mad Men. She is fantastic and such a strong presence, I think, on screen. It's also so much darker and straight up gorier than I thought it would be. And I was a little worried that when I heard about the graphic novel and I looked through it, I was like, oh, I don't know if it's a teen show, if the people from Riverdale are making it. I'm really glad that they went there and it's as gory and dark as the series is. Because part of me was a little worried that because this is a teen show, they might hold back. The only con I would say is some of the acting isn't great. I don't think Harvey's necessarily the best. And whenever the story switches to her friends, her human friends, I should say, it's important topics that they're covering, but it's just difficult when you're looking at good versus evil and then it switches to the high school and they're looking at books that they want people to be able to read in the school that the school is banning. Those are of course important things, but when you compare the two, whenever it switches to her friends, I'm kind of like, I don't care. So overall, I would highly recommend Sabrina. Next, we're gonna talk about The Purge. I know I said I gave ones like Light as a Feather a few episodes at least to try out. I gave The Purge about an episode and a half, I'm gonna be honest. I don't love the movies, but I actually thought that a series format or a mini-series, whatever it is, would lend itself well, doing itself in kind of a 24 type format where you're really going through all the hours that the purge is happening with different people. But I think the acting is weak, the writing is weak, all of the characters really feel like stereotypes, so I wasn't hoping much from this and I was still kind of let down. Now we're going to talk about one that I've heard a lot of people talking about, and that is The Haunting of Hill House. Now if you guys have been watching my channel for the past few videos, I guess, you would have seen that I just read The Haunting of Hill House a month or two ago and I adored it. And before The Haunting of Hill House, the series came out, I saw the trailer and I was like, wow, this looks zero like the book, except for the fact that a couple characters randomly have the same names and it takes place in Hill House. So I was kind of a little worried. So for a brief summary, this is about 4 siblings who live with their parents in Hill House. They move in when all the kids are little and they run away one night, something horrific happens, and then it jumps forward in time to when the kids are adult. Something else terrible happens in their family that kind of brings them together, and it kind of makes them all question, okay, what happened in Hill House when we were little? Was it in our minds? Was it a psychological issue? Or was it really ghosts or something evil in the house? At its core, even though this is very much targeted and marketed as a horror, I would say that it's very much a very sad, dark family drama that happens to have some really amazing horror elements. Because I will say just first, this show lives up to all of the hype that people are giving it. I just think the acting is wonderful. Even just the casting, the people they casted to be the kids and the adults look exactly, I mean, it's maybe the best child to adult casting I've ever seen. The way Hill House looks, even though I did love in the book how Hill House is ugly, I just love how beautiful and eerie the house is. And some of the jump scares are outright, and then sometimes you'll just see in the very background a ghost, and it's just standing there. And it's not like the director is spoon feeding it to you and they're panning to it, it's just you're watching the characters talk and then you're like, oh, there's a ghost there! The one thing I would say going into this, and I wouldn't necessarily call this a con, but if you're looking for a super fast-paced horror, this might not be for you just because it is a little bit more of a slow burn, but I think it's so worth it. So please go ahead and start The Haunting of Hill House if you haven't yet. Now we're going to talk about one I haven't heard a lot of people mention, and that is Into the Dark, The Body. So Into the Dark is a new anthology movie/TV series. I haven't heard of something like this being done before, where every single month there's going to be, it's I think a little over an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, a new horror short movie or like one long episode that is related to that month. And so the one for Halloween in October that came out is called The Body. And then I'm sure in February it's going to be Valentine's Day related. I'm sure in December it'll be Christmas related. All these different horror themes related to the holidays, which I think will be quite fun. So I was really interested in the concept, and there are kind of a few different plot lines in this one. You have a serial killer slash assassin who's killing this celebrity, and then unfortunately a few other people at the party accidentally get involved, and then he's chasing after them. And I love, again, the concept of this show. I don't think it was terrible, but it did fall a little bit flat for me. I think the thing that was really hard was you would have this one plot line of the assassin and this blonde-haired girl who's kind of interested in what he's doing, and it's pretty dark, and then it would switch to this friend group who accidentally got involved, and it's supposed to be really funny, and the two tones don't balance each other out. They just kind of clash and don't work very well. I also thought the acting was kind of wooden overall and not great. So unfortunately this one didn't live up to my expectations, but it was pretty good, and I'm gonna keep watching and seeing what the other ones look like. And finally, we're gonna talk about the only animated show that I'm gonna cover, and that is Castlevania. So this is an animated series where Dracula's wife, she's human, is killed by other humans. So Dracula unleashes hell upon the city, and then our protagonist is this vampire hunter who attempts to take Dracula and all his minions down. I have to say, whenever I hear that something is based off of a video game, I don't have super high hopes, just because a lot of movies in particular just don't turn out very well, even if they have Michael Fassbender. But this one is fantastic. I'm only a few episodes in, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's also fun that the episodes are so short, so even though I'm watching so many shows, I can kind of get through them pretty quickly. But I think that the animation and the voice acting, it's such a good balance. I was saying the body does a really bad job of being funny and dark, but Castlevania does such a good job of, especially the vampire hunter. He's incredibly funny and sarcastic and attractive. But then a lot of the show is so dark and so incredibly, insanely gory. Just severed heads, intestines, things flying left and right, lots of body parts. But for some reason it all works so well together. So I think even if you're not a fan of animated TV shows, I don't generally watch too many, except for a few animes, I would highly recommend checking this one out. So that was my 2018 horror TV show review. I know that there are a few other horror TV shows out there, but I only have so much time to devote to TV. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween, or I guess at the time I'm posting this, I hope you guys had a wonderful Halloween. Please let me know, did you agree with me on these? Did you disagree? Are there some that I missed that I should have talked about? But again, I hope you guys had a wonderful Halloween, and I'll see you all next Thursday. Bye.